All right, we're going to get started. Good afternoon. My name is Bill Proctor, and I'm the president of Epicenter Development Group, which is an industrial engineering consulting firm based in Cleveland. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar today, where we'll be investigating some of the factors associated with a hire or not hire decision. And like many of the companies that we work with, we continue to look at how to best staff upcoming projects with high-quality people in what we consider to be a very competitive and dynamic marketplace. In some cases, we've found that it's better to contract with an outside firm to provide services than bring on a new employee or invest in new technology or extensive training. So today's webinar is going to outline some of our thoughts and calculations that we've done around that question that we'd like you to consider. As we go through this webinar today, please type in your questions, which we will cover at the end of the webinar. And again, thank you for attending today. So let's get started here. I'd like to talk about some of the factors that we're going to consider, which are workload consistency, need for special skills or tools, urgency, how quickly you need something done, the need for an outside view, and finally, and probably most important to many people, cost to hire, train, and support employees. And we'll actually be going through a spreadsheet that we've developed and giving you an example of some of the calculations that we use when we try to look at the buy, go outside versus hire somebody as an option. So let's just go ahead and go through each one of these. And the first is workload consistency, which is perhaps one of the biggest factors of when you want to hire a person versus outsource. And as companies have begun to trim their core workforce, we have found that they're more sensitive to changes in the marketplace. Historically, when companies had ups and downs throughout the year, they would cover that by having their people work overtime. Plus, there was always a little bit of extra people on staff that you could use that were more or less busy throughout the year. However, a lot of companies today have trimmed their staff down to the point where if there's any significant changes in the workload, it puts a lot of burden on the people that are there. And that can lead to long hours as people try to finish special projects. It can lead to employee burnout and higher employee turnover. I think some of the latest economic indicators have pointed to that many of these people are becoming a little burned out, and there has been some statistics showing that productivity has actually dropped a little bit. And I think that's a direct indicator of people being a bit overworked. Secondly, the marketplace, I think, today appears to be a little less stable than it used to be. It used to be that things are at a pretty stable workload throughout the year, and today's marketplace is a lot more dynamic. I mean, I know in our company, month to month can change pretty significantly based on what's going on in the world. We've become truly a world market. So when you add those two things together, you end up with a staff that's very difficult for your full-time employees to handle things. So what a lot of companies are doing, and just showing this, is they'll hire a core full-time group of employees to handle the day-to-day and basic stuff. They'll maybe hire some part-time employees to handle more seasonality stuff, and then they'll hire as-needed outside resources. And I'm not saying here that it's a third, a third, a third. It's probably a lot more core people and a few part-time and as-needed again. Certainly you're not replacing core full-time people, but instead you're trying to protect those people and bring on resources as needed that can help with specific projects that might come up. I know for us, we do have this sort of situation. We have a core group of people. We have some part-time employees. And of course, in today's market, there are more and more people interested in this option, and we do have some as-needed resources. So if we had an ergonomics project, for example, we don't do enough ergonomics work to hire an ergonomist. So we have some people that we have worked with that we can bring in as outside resources when we need them. The next area is need for special skills and tools. And it takes a lot less time to do something if you have the right tools and you know how to use them. So this goes back to, And I'll give you an example. Let's say you're trying. I'll give you a real-world example here. A couple of years ago, I needed to disconnect my refrigerator's ice maker because it was leaking. And I'm not a plumber, but I figured, I'm an engineer. I can figure it out. I got on the internet and I disconnected it, and of course it ended up leaking all over the place. So I went on and bought a blowtorch and tried to use that. And the next thing you know, I'm using duct tape to try to stop the leak in my basement. Well, finally I ended up calling a plumber. He came in. He had all the right tools. He fixed the problem in an hour. And while he was there, he also said, I'm going to replace this piece of pipe. If you'd like, I can put a valve in there so that in the future, if someone wants to hook up their refrigerator to the water source, they could just use this valve. And of course, the plumber didn't blow up the house. I was a little nervous about that torch for a bit. But I think the point here is to highlight some of the types of benefits. Safety, sometimes it's safer to have an out. Certainly electrician, you don't want to do some of that yourself. You can get things done faster in some cases, have better results, and have extra value. In this case, I wouldn't even have thought to put a valve there because that's what he does. So he's able to say, well, there's some extra value. You're already replacing this. Perhaps there's some other things that we can do that won't really cost you that much more. And then I think the most important thing is now I have a relationship with this plumber. So the next time I have an issue, I'll be more likely to go to him to use him right away instead of going through all the hassle of trying to do it myself. So again, if you have the right tools and everything, sometimes it makes sense for a special project to go outside. And I know also just from a tool standpoint at Epicenter, we have developed a lot of tools like spreadsheet templates, and we have simulation modeling programs that are $18,000 each. You probably wouldn't go out and spend money to buy those if you just needed it for one project. You got Visio templates, AutoCAD templates, a lot of tools that we've built up over the years. I'm sure your accountants and your lawyers have a lot of the same kinds of things. Whereas if you were to do it, you'd have to reinvent the wheel. They can use the tool and become much, much more productive. So again, the higher the need for special skills and tools, the more value there might be to outsource versus hire someone. The next area is need for urgency. And I'm just going to check here to see if there's any questions. It looks like no questions yet. All right. Sometimes it's difficult for internal resources to switch gears and to manage critical projects with tight deadlines. This goes back to, everyone pretty much is pretty busy now. We go out and work with companies. Companies have trimmed down so much. The people that are left are already kind of struggling to get their basic things done, and they get a special project. It's very hard for them to stop what they're doing and then start something else and then go back and forth. Hold on, I'm getting some sort of feedback here on the audio. We're okay again. Some considerations on this. One, if you pull people off of something to work on something else, this can often disrupt multiple people and multiple projects. Sometimes rather than play musical chairs and have some people starting and moving over to another project and delaying things and causing this ripple effect, it's better to bring an outside person in. Sometimes it's difficult for people to manage several projects at once. So we would recommend, again, going back to what I said before on the last slide, in order to be able to handle the flexible needs of your company throughout the year, we would suggest trying to develop relationships with outside resources before you really need them. And that means bringing them in, having them maybe do a small project, establish a relationship there, establish pricing, so that when you do need them, they can come in very quickly and get the job done. I know at Epicenter, for us, we know it takes a long time sometimes to find high-quality people. So we're constantly looking for people that we can put in our bank. We have a whole bunch of resumes. Now, of course, things change and some people aren't available, but it takes a lot less time to find good people when you already have a list of people that have had an interest in the past. The next area is need for outside view. Sometimes a fresh outside an outside resource can give you a fresh viewpoint to a stubborn, unresolved issue. And there's really three benefits sometimes you bring in an outside person, three situations. One is sometimes when we go into a company, there's a lot of biasness and assumptions and preconceived notions. This is how we've always done it. And sometimes it's hard for someone that's in the system to really see things or look outside the box. So many times we'll go in and right away see things, opportunities, or see a solution to a problem that someone within the system can't see. So that's one benefit. So if you feel like you're stuck and there's a problem that you have not been able to resolve, sometimes it's good to have someone else come in and give you a second opinion. Two, everyone has different perspectives. So of course the people within a company are very, this is how it works here and this is how things work in our industry. Sometimes there's a lot of value to bringing in people from that have experience in other industries. We see that a lot when I do work in hospitals. A lot of the people in the hospitals come from the automotive industry. And why are they there? And it's not because they have hospital experience, but because the healthcare system recognizes that there's value to bringing in someone with a different perspective, in this case the automotive industry. I think that's the real value to diversity in the workplace, is having people that have different viewpoints looking at a problem. And then third, sometimes we get in a situation where there's a politically charged concern, and it's very difficult for someone within the company to resolve it. And so in that case, you might bring in an outside neutral party to give you some sort of feedback. So an example of this, a number of years ago, we did work for a pharmaceutical company that had some productivity issues. And they asked us to come in and take a look at their operations. And right away, we could see that we could see what the problem was. I won't get into it, but there were some very specific things going on, very politically charged things. We told them, well, here's what the problem is, and everyone's like, oh, okay. Well, in this case, they were able to bring that problem to the surface without having to be the one to bring it to the surface and not have the fallout on either side. So again, this is a case where they were kind of stuck, and no one wanted to take the step politically to surface some of these things. And of course, if they said it, then the other would shoot back, well, here's what's really going on. And so we were able to come in as an outside resource. So again, three different times when you may consider having an outside person. All right, let's get into the stuff that probably most people are interested in, which is cost factors. Let me just check again, see if there's any questions. No questions, all right. The cost of hiring a person really begins before you hire them, and it can last until after they're gone. Like when you lay someone off, someone has to be let go. There's costs that linger on afterwards. So really talking about the life cycle cost of hiring a person and some of the considerations. So what we're going to do is discuss some of the major costs and then again work through a spreadsheet analysis that we use to try to estimate potential savings or not savings of going outside versus inside. Some of the cost factors are finding employees, hiring, training, compensating, equipping, supporting, and retaining. So let's get to the first one here. The finding, hiring, training. These are the things that happen before you even have a person start at their desk. They're really just getting the person in the door, doing their orientation, getting things set up. So this can include advertising costs. I know when we look for people, you might put something on monster.com or there's some engineering job boards. There's some costs to do that. You have time for internal people, whether it's your HR staff or someone else, or if you use an outside recruiter, you've got costs associated with those recruiters. And I know that can be very, very expensive, especially if you're looking at higher level people. You have referral bonuses to employees that you might have to consider. Travel costs for search, so if you have to go out to a location to do interviews or if you need to pay for the person's travel to get to you. There's, of course, the productivity loss while searching. just because you want someone doesn't mean you're going to get them immediately. So there's a delay time, which could typically be 40 to 60 days. So while you're waiting, you still have some productivity loss. Many times companies wait till the last minute before they hire a replacement, and so they're kind of limping along while they're trying to find that person. So you do have some costs associated with that. You can have testing and background check costs. You can have relocation costs and orientation costs. And outside, I did an internet search, and it looks like those costs could range quite a bit, but somewhere between 8 and 25% of the starting salary is what you would pay for this sort of thing. So whether the person works out or not, you're going to be paying 8 to 25% of their starting annual salary. So that gives you kind of an idea. Compensation, I ran a report. I go to salary.com because it does give you some information based on what it's being reported. This is the industrial engineering one, which is like an entry-level industrial engineer in Brecksville, which is where I live. And you can see here they've broken out some of the costs and benefits. A lot of people just think about the base salary. So base salary, the medium salary in our area is $54,000 to hire an entry-level industrial engineer, which seems really high to me, but back when I graduated, that would have been a lot of money. And but that's only 70% of the total of what you're paying, because you're also going to pay for some bonuses. You have Social Security. You might have a retirement program. Like we have a retirement program we pay for plus matching. To get good people, sometimes you have to have some of those benefits in place. You have disability insurance. You have health care insurance, which of course can be very variable depending upon how big your company is. And we all know the health care costs are going out of control, so that can be a big one. Pensions, perhaps. You might have a pension and time off. And so you're paying for all these things. Again, I didn't make these up. These are from salary.com. They get it from information reported to them. So the total cost goes from like $54,000 up to $78,000 when you consider all those costs. There's quite a few things that could be in that, and they update those costs all the time. So you can get in there. I always, when I'm looking to hire someone, I'll go in there and I'll take a look at the information on salary.com. Of course, once you hire someone, you have to equip them and you have to support them. Equipping is like giving them, they'll need a laptop and they'll need software, which will probably cost you, $2,000 or more, depending upon, the cost of the laptop to get them office. If they need software like simulation or AutoCAD, it could be quite a bit more. You're going to have to provide office space and furniture, chairs, and all that good stuff. Phones. Now, of course, everybody nowadays has a couple phones. There's your office phone, your cell phone. In our company, we also have we all have iPhones, so we get data service. So that could be quite a bit of money. And of course, there's other things that they might need, steel-toed boots and certain clothes, and there's all kinds of things that they might need to be equipped. Supporting has to do with ongoing development. When you hire someone, if you're a smart company, you're going to be doing some ongoing development of your employee. So you've got training and development. You have maybe educational reimbursement you give them. I think the big one for support is full-time commitment. Because, in my experience, you don't always need 100% of a person. Sometimes you need a 75% of a person. In many companies I work at, we look at value added. If someone is 80% busy, that's pretty good. When you hire someone as an employee, you're committing a full time to them, no matter how slow things are. We know around the end of the year, in many cases, productivity goes down quite a bit. So that is also a consideration. There's just some things for equipping and supporting. And it doesn't look like I have any other questions, so I'm going to keep on going. The next area is retaining. And retaining could be a voluntary employee turnover. Somebody quits. Or it could be involuntary, where you have to let them go. Down here we've got a chart I pulled off the internet. It's based on, I think the information might be 5 years old, so it's not, it probably has changed quite a bit with the economy, but this is based on the U.S. labor information. It's annual voluntary turnover by industry, and depending upon the industry, you can see this is the percentage of turnover per year. So the percentage of employees that turn over, you could see the highest one here is retail trade at 35%. And I'm not surprised because there are a lot of people that probably they hire during busy season like the holidays, and then there are also slower periods. The lowest, unfortunately, is manufacturing. I do a lot of work in manufacturing. It's not too bad, but still 15, 16% of voluntary turnover. That doesn't include involuntary turnover, of course. I also find it it's very difficult to keep excellent employees in this market. I get a lot of resumes. A lot of people, you look at their resume, the average amount of time they're spending at one company is 2 to 5 years. So there is quite a bit of turnover. And companies that find good employees, they want to hold on to them. They're offering more and more, not only financial benefits, but non-financial benefits like flexible working hours and things. So I think it's going to be, I think that's going to be a real key issue, is finding resources going forward. There's less and less. There's an interesting statistic over here I got off of a website, which was 40%, and I believe this, 40% of information on a resume is misrepresented, while 30% of applications contain false material information. And I find it so many times, you look at a resume and when you talk with someone, they really have overstated what they said they can do. So you really have to spend a lot of time finding the right person, otherwise you're going to end up having to let them go because they're not going to be able to do what you need them to do. All right, let's get into our example here. I'm just going to check real quick, see if I have any questions. I don't. I'm going to go to our spreadsheet, and this spreadsheet is something that we put together ourselves as we're trying to look at, when we hire someone, does it make sense to hire them or outsource them? And for our clients, a lot of them, we have some clients that are looking to hire IE, and we want to be able to help them make a good decision. And of course, these are just our values, but you can see here we've got different levels. An industrial engineering technician is someone with maybe an associate's degree. We have an entry-level industrial engineer, an industrial engineer, a senior industrial engineer, and a project manager. Those are the types of classes we have within our company. Certainly your company would be different. And we've broken this analysis up into different parts, and the top part is the most straightforward, which is what is the committed cost. These are the base costs that you would expect. So again, taking information right off of salary.com, this is the cost to hire an industrial engineering technician, $55,000, and the benefit cost for $80,448. Now, our example here would be an outsourced engineering technician, and I'm not saying this is our rate, but it's probably a pretty reasonable rate, $65 an hour. So right away you can see our committed costs, we have $65 in the outsourced column, and we have $80,000 in the hired column. Now what we do then is we convert this to cost per hour, because we want to get an idea of what the savings are in terms of cost per hour of value-added time. So if we go down here, certainly for outsourcing, you don't care about working days per year and stuff because you're only paying when you have someone. So that's $65 an hour. But we do have to make an adjustment for our hired person. So there's 260 base working days per year. It's 5 days a week. And on this level, we're saying 10 days of PTO days per year. So you're not getting those 10 days of paid time off, sick time, or vacation time. Then just put in a conservative 5 days a year of training and 7 days a year for holidays. That's what ours is, major holidays. So you're actually getting about 238 days a year of time for this person working. And maybe you could make the justification that they're going to work a lot of hours before or after vacations to make up for it. But technically, they're really not supposed to do that. And this also, by the way, we're making an assumption of 8-hour days. So if they're working longer days, then this analysis has to be adjusted. So if you look at it from this standpoint up to now, our cost for a hired engineer is $42 an hour, and our cost, again, for our outsourced person is $65 an hour. So right now, at this point, I'd say, well, you're better off hiring someone. All right, now let's get into some of the fuzzy math, and we'll talk about it a little bit more here also in a second. But the next one is probably the most objective of everything. I'm going to talk about how you'd calculate this in a minute, but my premise here, and I've worked for retail and manufacturers as well as a consultant, so I've been on both sides, is that the time it takes someone to do something internally is more than someone coming from the outside who knows what they're doing and has the right tools. All right, go back to the plumber example. I might have spent 4 hours trying to fix that. The guy comes in and does it in an hour. So what I tried to do here is I try to come up with 1 hour equivalency of value for every hour you pay for, how much value added you're getting. So if we go to the hired engineer, based on my experience, you're getting about 75% of their time is value added. And as you figure, and I've worked in a lot of companies that people aren't working the full 8 hours. There's times in there when there's breaks and your lunch, and that gets paid for, or they leave early, or they start late, or there's meetings and things that go on that really wear away at that productivity percentage. So, and you'd have to look at it for your own companies, of course, but I'm saying 75%. On the other side, for a consultant, somebody who has the right tools and has done this before, it'd be like going to a mechanic. I mean, they've done 100 oil changes. They can do them so fast. They can do them in their sleep. They have the right tools. They have everything set up. They can do it much faster. I'm saying they're about 140%. So in an hour, they can get about an hour and a half worth of stuff done because they have the right tools. So it's roughly 2 to 1. And again, I'm going to talk about in a minute how you would calculate this or estimate it for your situation. But these are the numbers that I'm throwing out. I want to see if anybody has any questions. All right, we don't have any questions yet. We're going to get back to this because I know people are going to be wondering about it. So if we take this into account, the productivity factor, and again, that goes back to all things we said before, having the right tools, having the right knowledge and experience. We take that into account. Our hired engineer is now $56 an hour, and our outsourced engineering technician is $46 an hour, which would give you an 18% saving, all right, in this example. Now, there's one more factor that I want to put in. You notice that I have not put in, I didn't even put in the support stuff, like buying software and buying computers and all that. I figured that was somewhat insignificant compared to everything else. So I'm not putting that in. I'm kind of simplifying it. But I am putting in employee turnover because I do think that could be somewhat significant. And I said here, all right, I'm going to be conservative. I'm going to say that the turnover is 5 years. So average employee will stay 5 years before they leave. So that would be a 20% turnover. If we go back to our numbers before, I think that's pretty darn reasonable, 20%. Then if you take the average cost to hire, train, and start up a person to their base, it's about 30%. So 30% of their first year's salary, but we divide it over 5 years, and you factor that into this cost here, and now we're at $59 per hour. So $59 an hour for hiring someone versus 46 equivalent dollars per hour for outsourcing. Again, making the assumption here that you're only paying the outsourcing person for time that they're spending doing your value-added activities. The calculated savings in this case would be 21%. Now, I'm not saying it's 21% for everything, because an entry-level engineer, we're saying that's probably more 5%. Industrial engineer, it jumps back up to 27%. It jumps up quite a bit for a senior industrial engineer, only because I think when you have a senior industrial engineer for doing the senior industrial engineering stuff, they're going to be able to get things done really fast compared to someone on the inside. Project manager, not so much. I made them 20%. So it all depends. Now let me just go back to this one number again. How would you calculate this equivalency, 1 hour equivalency? And what I would suggest, and we would love to do this with you and sit down with any one of you today and go through this, but what you would do is take all the activities that you're going to have that person do, that you're going to hire, and you're going to say, or maybe it's a project, say, how long would it take someone to do this really realistically within my company? And then you go out to a company, if you're in engineering, maybe us, if you're whoever you are, whatever you're looking for, you would ask them, how many hours is it going to take you to do this? And from that information, you can come up with these percentages. They're relative to each other, so if it takes your internal person, it's going to take them 200 hours, and it's going to take us, as an example, 100 hours, and that will tell you what these percentages should be. And that's how you would calculate that number. So that's, again, how we come up with these. We're not giving this spreadsheet out. We're kind of keeping it to ourselves. I'm sure you could, from this, looking at the webinar, probably recreate it yourself. But we would certainly invite you to, and we'd love to be part of your own analysis. So if you do want to go through this with us, we'd love to go through it with you and see what and maybe there's no savings. You know, we like to think of it as like a Geico thing. See what your savings could be. If there's no savings, then there's no reason to outsource in terms of cost. There might be reasons in terms of other things. But let me see if I have any questions. I have no questions. All right. All right, now let's say you've made the decision that you really want to start looking at partnering with some outside firms. Like I know for us, we've got an accounting firm we use, because we don't want to do accounting. We have a legal company that we use. We have some other companies that we've partnered with to do engineering. So what are the things that you'd want to consider in that relationship? So here's some of the things I think are important. One is stability of the company. Certainly you don't want to align yourself with a company that's going to go out of business in a couple of years. So look at the people that started the company and the stability of those people. Secondly, quality of people and experience level. We find a lot of companies nowadays, I'm not going to give names, but they'll hire someone right out of college and they'll turn around and say, here you go, here's a consultant that can come in and help you. They really don't have people that have got a lot of experience. You really want to look at the quality of the people that are being hired that you would be bringing in and ask specifically who you would be getting and what their experience level is. And unfortunately, it's kind of given the consulting industry a bad name, the bait and switch. You know, you meet our president and then you get Joe who just started out of, he just finished school. And you don't want to get the Joe. You want to get somebody who's, knows what they're doing. The third area is flexibility. How flexible is this company going to be working with you? How easy is it going to be to bring them in when you need them? I know at Epicenter we do a lot of things in our company to try to enhance flexibility. Like we have a bank of hours program that we use that allows us basically to create a bank. You can use the hours whenever you need to. You could use them for a 2-hour project or a 50-hour project or a 3-month project. And it really creates a very flexible system. We also give a discount with that program. You look at historical responsiveness from a company, and you look at the breadth of their services and capabilities. Are they going to be able to do all the things that we need them to do over the time period? If they can't do them all, then you might want to look at another company. Another would be level of investment. We know some companies, again, I'm not going to say names, but they'll bring in an employee and they'll send them out to a client or send them to work with a company, and they don't do any investment. They don't train them. They don't do anything to try to develop that person. I know in our company over the last year, we've sent 3 people to Six Sigma training. I've sent somebody to Utah for advanced simulation training. We do weekly meetings. We do newsletters. We do all kinds of different training things. that is going to increase the value of those people that you'd be hiring to come in from the outside. And then the last area of consideration is indirect benefits. Are there some indirect benefits that you're going to get by bringing in this company? I know for us, we've done a lot of things to try to enhance benefits without increasing costs for clients. Like we got a newsletter we do. I know many of you are probably on that newsletter. We do webinars like this to increase value. We have a lunch and learn program. We have training programs in Lean and how to do 5S, how to lay out a plant. So there's a lot of indirect benefits that we try to give to our partners to enhance the relationship and the value. So again, just some of the things to consider if you're going to look at outside resources. Before I wrap up, let me see if there's any questions here. I'm going to ask again when I'm done with the slide, but okay. Just some takeaways here. Two main takeaways, I guess. One is really consider partnering with outside resources to improve your flexibility and cost. And you might not need someone today or tomorrow, but it's good to have resources that you know and that you trust, that you can bring in very quickly to help you out during peak periods. A lot of our clients, they'll wait until the last second when they've tried to do it themselves, and then they try to bring us in, and then, of course, you know, we're scrambling to get things done. If you can set it up where it's now my plumber's on my speed dial, okay? So if I have a problem, I'm not going to let the leaks begin. I'm going to call them up and get them started now. So certainly consider strategically who your partner should be and start to develop a program of partnering with them, whether it's an outside contracting firm, whether it's individual people that maybe used to work at your company that you'd like to bring in as needed, or it's an outside firm like Epicenter. The second takeaway is consider all of the costs associated with hiring. It's easy if you just look at the bottom line, dollars per hour versus the dollars per hour to hire someone, to get the false impression that it's a lot cheaper to hire your own person. That is probably true for some cases, but in some cases I'd say that you'd be better off hiring an outside resource. It can save you a lot of time and money, and you'll get a better value and result. And those are really the two big takeaways. I would like to thank everyone for your interest. I'm going to take questions here in a second, but certainly want to thank everyone who signed up today. We're probably going to be posting this webinar in case you know other people who might be interested. If you would like to learn more about Epicenter and our partnerships, or if you would like us to go through that spreadsheet, we can do it either in person or do a go-to meeting or something. Please contact us. The number's here, 216-548-7136, or you can call Cindy Scott. That's Cindy Scott's number, or you can email Cindy at cscott@epicentergroup.com, or you can certainly go to our website, www.epicentergroup.com, and you can tell us you'd like us to give you a contact. All right, so I'm going to check here, see if there's any questions. Anybody has any questions now, if you could just let me know. Any questions at all? All right, then. Well, it's been about 38 minutes. So I want to, again, thank you for your time and appreciate your interest. And hopefully we'll be talking to you again soon. We will be doing webinars every month or two on different topics. So certainly check back if you do have an interest. After the webinar, there are some questions for our exit poll. So we would love to have you answer those questions. We're always trying to improve our webinars, so if you would take the time to do that, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Bye.